Welcome and thanks for joining us on episode 9 of Code Girls on Air Season 2, a podcast exploring all things technology, female leadership, careers, education, and topics within the nonprofit sector. In this episode of Code Girls on Air, we interviewed Laura Kneeshaw, a technical lead at 14.4. Join us to hear more about her story. Welcome, Laura. Thank you so much for being on Code Girls on Air today. Go ahead and start with your name and also what your job title and description is.
All right. I'm Laura Kneeshaw. I'm a technical lead at 14.4, which is a digital agency in Spokane, Washington. As a technical lead, I run a team of developers and also help run just the technical department as a whole. So we make a lot of decisions about like the stack and all of that. I'm a front-end developer, so that's what I specialize in. That's about it.
For sure, yeah. So you said that your first experience with coding was messing around with your MySpace page in middle school. And what do you remember from that?
Not a ton. I do remember, I mainly remember copying just massive blocks of code and then pasting them somewhere else. And then I would have a sparkly background or a cute animated dog on my page, and it was a lot of fun. But I didn't think too much about what was actually happening there.
Yeah, for sure. Back then, did you ever imagine yourself working in tech, or did it feel totally out of reach at the time?
Definitely didn't imagine it back then. I don't even think I knew that was a job that you could have. And we're talking I was probably 10 or 11. So it wasn't until years later when I actually started getting into it that I kind of looked back and I was like, wait, I've done this before. I recognize this stuff. So
yeah, I think that especially in hindsight, those little things can really feel like that thread that ties it all together. So you mentioned thinking that you were not smart enough for programming, and that's something that a lot of girls feel. What helped you push through that self-doubt?
I almost don't even think it was self-doubt that I was super conscious of. Just growing up, I wasn't really super aware of it as an option. Or, what I knew about it's just the kind of stuff you'd see on TV. And so I just assumed that you had to be insanely smart to do this kind of work. So it didn't even just register as something to even look into to see if I was interested, or to see if it was something I could do. And it wasn't until I had a advisor. Well, I mean, I was fortunate in that the web classes were a required part of my schooling, so I had to take one, and that was kind of the entry point for me. Once I started doing that, I realized it was something that I was interested in and something that wasn't quite as scary as I originally thought.
Yeah, for sure. And I think those entry points can be really important, and especially at Code Girls, that's what we try and do for young girls, even if they don't think that they're good enough to code. They don't even see it as a real career option. Those, even if it's required, is super important just for any digital literacy. So you started in design, you almost changed your major, and then you found your path through that web class. How did you know when something finally clicked for you?
It was pretty easy for me because I'd been taking all of these classes that I was not loving, that I was actually actively hating, and not having a good time. It was literally about to either quit, drop out, change my major. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was freaking out about it. And then I had an advisor convince me to that with it, start taking these classes, start taking these specific classes and just see what you think. And that class was instantly so much fun for me. And I was good at it too. It all was kind of clicking into place pretty easily. And part of that was because I was like, oh, this is somewhat familiar to me, just based on the little bits of coding that I had accidentally done over the years. And so it just was like a completely different feeling from um, anything that I had done before for uh, like all of the research that I had put into figuring out what I wanted to do. So it just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a Marie Kondo moment, like the spark joy
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially anything in college and those advisors that you could have are super important in finding that niche, finding what sparks joy. Do you see that advisor that you had kind of pivotal in your career path?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I was like, I was very close to stopping. It, it is a real possibility that if we hadn't had that talk, I would have like taken a break, picked something else. Um, and so just that was really a turning point, I guess, or not really a turning point because he was just encouraging me to stick with it just a little bit longer. But that was what I needed. And I don't know that I would have like come across this otherwise if I hadn't kept going with the program.
For sure, yeah. So your first two tech jobs were at your university. How did that
Hmm.
happen, and what did you learn from working on real websites right away?
Um, I I think I had a teacher, or possibly my advisor, my same advisor, probably alerted me that like that internship existed with the IT team. So they sent me that way. Um, I think I had one interview. I guess it went well because I got that job. Um, and I was with the app dev team for I think like 9-ish months or something. And that was great. That was my first time actually working on a real website, and I learned so much from that internship. And which is funny. I look back at it now, and it's like, oh, I didn't actually learn like a ton compared to what I've learned since then at different jobs. But but it was a really good just like introduction to so many things that I still use today. And um, about yeah, so when I hit that 9 month point, there was a contract position that the school pretty much kind of made for me. Like they had a need. They had all of these departmental websites that needed to be uh, redone. It was all in WordPress, so and we had just like come out with new WordPress themes. So all of these super old, super outdated sites needed to be moved over to those new themes, and also just like have a complete revamp as far as like what kind of content they actually had. And so I did a lot of that work. That was actually very little code. I missed it during that time. I felt like I was kind of losing some of my like JavaScript skills. Um, but yeah, I think just because I was one of the few people in the program who actually was interested in web rather than design, and because of the work that I'd done with the app dev team, which did all of that WordPress work, um, that I had a few people pretty much be like, "Hey, are you interested in doing this?" And I was like, "Yes," because I couldn't continue with the IT department after graduating. Um, so yeah, I guess what I did learn between those two jobs was how very little I learned in my web classes. Like,
Hmm.
there's only so much they can cram into, a quarter. And uh, I learned the basics from that, but pretty much 99% of everything that I've learned is once I was actually in a real job working on real websites. And yeah, that's been great.
For sure, and it's kind of the idea of trial by fire where you don't really have that real world experience just because it's in a closed environment in a class. It's given
Yeah.
to you in this way. But obviously in real life things aren't packaged in perfect little packets that are like, "Oh, you do this, then you do this, then you do this." And a lot of it's just that trial and learning how to overcome those challenges. So, looking back at those early jobs, is there anything you wish you could tell your younger self about stepping into the tech world?
Mm, hmm. Uh, not a ton. I mean, I think just maybe a warning that it would just be a constant, like, that I'd be constantly learning things. And that's just going to be how it is just for my entire career.
For
Um,
sure.
but I think maybe I would tell myself too to like have a little bit more confidence. You know, I didn't really think um, I was good. Even at that point, I didn't think I was good enough for like the kind of work that I'm doing. It took a few years to get over that, I think. Um, but it has been. I haven't failed, so
Yeah,
I
for
wish I
sure.
could go back in time and tell myself that I won't fail.
Yeah, for sure. So you've now worked at the same agency for nearly 8 years, and you've gone from junior developer to technical lead. What does a day in your life look like, and what has that growth been like?
Um, it's interesting. A lot has changed over the last 8 years in my time at uh 14.4. Um, while also at the same time, very little has changed. Like as a junior developer, I was working on a lot of projects. That has been the reality the entire time that I've been there. Is we're an agency, we get a lot of different projects in the shop. A lot of them are pretty quick. A lot of things will only be up for a few months because it's for like a specific campaign or for a specific event. And so we get through that project and we move on to another one. Um, so I've been able to work on like a huge variety of stuff over the years. I've probably worked on literally hundreds of projects. Um, and a lot of the types of projects that we do haven't changed much over the years. I mean, we're always trying to work with new technology, so there's that always kind of has evolved over time. But still, the day to day is just I have maybe a couple projects I'm working on at the same time, and I'm working on them for a month or two, and then I'm moving on to something new and learning something new. And what has changed is definitely like I've gone from working on very easy projects that a junior developer would work on to pretty much anything that comes into the shop, and leading projects. And now I'm the one, mentoring junior developers that we have in, and trying to help all of the developers on my team grow. And managing is definitely different. Obviously, I wasn't doing that as a junior developer. um, I'm sort of forgetting the question. I've been talking a while.
No, yeah, no worries. Just that growth, and you kind of talked about it for sure. And I think it's such a full circle moment for you that you're now mentoring those junior developers that you were 8 years ago. And I think that growth is really cool to see. So, what's your favorite part about leading a dev team, and what's the hardest part?
Favorite part is, um, I think just seeing like the developers on my team succeed. Uh, I wasn't really sure how I would do as a manager, and whether or not I would like it, because it is more of a it's a lot more social than just typing code into my
For
computer.
sure.
But it's actually been really rewarding, I think. And I have a lot of developers on my team who have been in the field longer than I have. So when I'm working with devs on my team, I'm not necessarily like mentoring them, or telling them how to be a better developer. I'm really kind of acting more as like a facilitator to make sure everything is going well, making sure they're happy, making sure they're feeling uh, like they're growing. And so it's really been more of like I've really just been more acting like a facilitator, and to see to see it working, to see the developers on my team growing and like getting experience in the things they want to get experience in, or like addressing problems and fixing problems and making sure that they're happy. Like that's been really rewarding for me. Um, and on the flip side of that, I guess the hardest thing to deal with as a manager is having to give constructive feedback, um, because I can't always be the nice person who's
Mhm.
I can't always be nice. It's not always a good thing that I have to talk to them about. The worst thing I've ever had to do, I think, on my job was lay someone off, and that was horrible.
Yeah, for sure.
um, yeah, it's just, ugh, yeah. But I mean, those conversations are important, um, and I have seen positive things come out of those conversations.
Hmm.
So I've had to talk to developers about like, okay, these are areas where you need to improve. Um, let's outline like how to do that, and that is a conversation that could potentially go wrong depending on how people react. Um, but in general, I've seen it go well, and people have taken feedback pretty well and applied it, and that's good to see. But that's definitely a scary part.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, yeah, just balancing out that constructive criticism and praise as well, and especially just kind of in that nurturing way that sometimes you have to discipline. And that's definitely hard when you want, like, obviously everyone is doing their best and all of that, but yeah, sometimes you have to be real and have those tough conversations. So, yeah.
Yep.
So you've worked on some huge projects from huge companies like Nike, AT&T, and T, and Pepsi, which is super cool. What's it like working on something that millions of people might see and use?
It's pretty cool. I do remember when I first started working here, and I was working on projects like that, I was like pretty stunned that I was working on projects like that, which, um, I guess someone has to, but it was really fun, like working on something, working for brands that I recognized, and in some cases, like seeing commercials that were referring to the website or the experience that we built, and being like, "Oh, I did that," and that feeling has gone down a little bit. Like at this point, it's my normal. Um, but every now and then it's still pretty cool to be like, oh yeah, I worked on a project that was like for the Super Bowl, and um, that's pretty cool. So yeah,
For
I'm still pretty
sure.
proud of that.
Yeah, do you have a favorite project or something that you're really proud of?
Um, I I've worked on so many things. Um, I recently we had a pretty fun one. I did mention the Super Bowl. This wasn't like officially a part of the Super
Hmm.
Bowl. But we did I don't know, have you ever played Super Bowl squares? I definitely never had.
No, I cannot say I have.
It's a game, it has to do with football. Um, but we did a project with Kia, called Kia Squares, and it was basically the Super Bowl Squares game, but it was
Oh,
with
I've
like
heard
a
of
bunch.
Kia Squares actually.
You did? See,
Yes.
that's pretty cool.
That is so cool. I love that. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I built that. Uh at
that is
least the
so
front end
cool.
part of it. Um Yeah, so we had a bunch of Kia cars in the squares. People would pick like which square they wanted. The squares on game day would be like based on the scores of the two teams. And so it had to update as the Super Bowl was actually going. And so like I had to watch a lot more football than I really wanted to test that thing and make sure that we were actually getting that data live. And then, of course, I was watching the Super Bowl and testing this app the whole time. But it was fun to have built something like that that all these people were interacting with, and the winners ended up like getting put into a raffle to win a car or something like that. So that was a really fun one. That's I'd say the most fun I've had on a project in a while. Some other things we've done have been like installations at like sporting events. Like we've done some stuff for F1, not for F1, but stuff that would be at F1
Hmm.
races,
Very cool.
and at basketball games. So it's all been very fun stuff, and not all of it's fun. I get a lot of like satisfaction out of just regular websites
Mhm.
too. So yeah.
For sure, yeah, that's super, super cool. So, if a girl is listening right now and thinks that tech sounds super cool but also really scary, what would you want her to hear from you?
Uh, I'd say a couple things. The first thing is that it's probably not as scary as she thinks. It wasn't as scary as I thought. Like when I when I first got into it, initially I wasn't aware that it was something that I was even nervous about. And then I started getting into it and was like, I think maybe at that point a little bit nervous, but I was also like, I was learning the stuff and thinking like, oh, this is just stuff that you can learn. Like this is just stuff that anyone can learn. Um, and it kind of like ruined the magic for me, I guess, but in a really positive way. Because then it stopped being a lot more, it stopped being like this unattainable thing and became like something I could actually do. So it's not as scary as you think. It's just like learning any other thing. But the other thing I would say, and this is some advice that I actually recently received that's really stuck with me, is sometimes you have to do the thing afraid. Uh, do it scared. Um, because sometimes it does get a little scary. I'll have to work with a technology I've never worked with before, or I'll need to work in something where I may not like fully understand what potential consequences there might be if I do a certain thing. And there's always kind of like the little fear that I'll break something. I've definitely broken some things over the years. Or we'll get a project and it'll be like, oh, I don't know how to build that. And I'll have a moment of like uncertainty and being scared about it before it's like, well, I've built a million things at this point. I can figure it out. And I always have figured it out. So there'll definitely be moments like that. But it's just stuff that you work through. And usually you're working with um, a great team. Like, I definitely haven't done all of this alone. And I've learned so much from my peers, and it's comforting to know that if things go horribly, horribly wrong and I can't figure it out on my own, there's people I can ask. It's a really fun community that way. So, yeah, do it scared.
For sure, I love that. So, what's something that you're still learning or excited to explore in your career journey?
I am learning all the time still. I accessibility has always been a thing that I've been super interested in, and that's something that I've just kind of continuously studied. And for those, if you're not familiar, accessibility is just making the web
Mhm.
accessible to people with disabilities, whether that's like cognitive disabilities or like visual or physical. So I don't know. That's one I think that is really important too. So I'm always trying to improve those skills because if there's very simple things that you can do to make websites accessible, but if you don't do them, it can make a website so hard to use, like on a screen reader or something like that. Like if I can't see very well, I'm using a screen reader to navigate, and a poorly coded website can totally mess with those. So that's a big one for me. That always kind of has been. Some other things that AI's, I'm sure, a part of every conversation you've been having lately.
Yeah, for sure. But it's a
I'm,
big deal, of course. So
yeah, it is. I couldn't ignore it forever. So, the last year has been kind of a journey learning how to like incorporate that into how I work and see what kind of tools are out there. And sometimes it works well and sometimes it really doesn't. But, that's something I'm going to have to continue to keep working with and learning with. Yeah.
yeah, I think especially the AI thing, it's a massive asset to any company, any team, but it can also be not only overused, because I think that's the popular idea, is that AIs can be overused, but also it can't yet maybe do everything well. And even if it can, it doesn't have that human touch that I think is important. Even
Yeah.
on the internet, even in web design or anything, that human touch, I think, should be and is prioritized more than just a robot that spat some things out on a website.
Yeah. It's sometimes it puts out some brilliant code and I read it and I'm like, yep, this is great. This is what I needed. Sometimes I'll give it a prompt and it will just horrifically fail. So
Yep.
until the point where it can like consistently spit out perfect code, developers will still be needed, but it'll be interesting to see how things develop over, the next 5 to 10 years.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being on Code Girls on Air today. Your
Yeah.
story has been so fascinating, and I'm sure our listeners will love to hear it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to episode 9 of season 2 of Code Girls on Air. Next week, we will be talking with Whitney Wenthold, a program and project manager. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and have a great rest of your week.